All right. Our guideline, did you guys get the opportunity to look at it at all? Kind of? Okay. So I'm just going to go straight into it. For those of you that are new, I'm Amanda. I am the leader of the Music City Lifestyle Group. I've been in real estate for a little over 8 years. I love it. It's my passion. I love helping people realize their goal of home ownership. And that's me. And then Whitney is my lead agent. And so if you do buy a home this year, which we hope all of you will buy a home in the next year, then you'll work directly with both of us. So that's us. That's a little bit about us. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm not going to go into a whole bio about us. But what we want to get in today is understanding kind of what contractual items go into purchasing a home. So right off the bat, whenever we write a contract for you, and there is an exception, which I'll get into in just a second. Whenever we write a contract on a home purchase for you, you're going to have several contingencies built in. If you don't know what a contingency is like a get out of contract free card, right? So if you don't meet your contingency, then you can use that contingency to back out of the contract without any legal ramifications and get your earnest money back. So right off the bat, you're going to have a financing contingency unless you're paying cash. And the financing contingency is the only contingency that extends all the way from the second we write the contract to closing. So essentially, if you get all the way through to a day before closing and you lose your job for some reason, that financing contingency sticks and we can get you out of the contract. The sellers cannot sue you and we can get you your earnest money back. So you're not out anything except for your inspection money. You cannot waive financing contingencies unless you are purchasing cash. Any other loan will be a financing contingency, but that is a good thing for you because in the event that you do lose your job or something crazy does happen and you can no longer get financed, you want to be able to get your investment back. You want to be able to get your money back and you want to be able to avoid a lawsuit from the sellers. So that is the only one that extends the entire term of the contract from the second we write it until you close on your home. The next one is the inspection contingency. The inspection contingency is also known as, like if you're Googling on the internet, a due diligence period. Typically, we write them for 10 days. Now, if we're in a multiple offer situation and we need to make our offer really strong, we may do a 2 or 3 day due diligence period. And what this means is that I'm going to go with the 10-day example here. If we write your inspection contingency in for 10 days, then you have 10 days from the date of a binding agreement. Pop quiz. What does BAD mean?
Binding agreement date?
Yes, binding agreement date. That was in the group, by the way. So you have 10 days from the binding agreement date, which is usually the day after your offer is accepted by the seller, to get any and all inspections that you want to get. A regular home inspection is going to be at minimum what you're going to want. These cover things like checking the appliances in the home, checking the drainage of the pipes, checking the HVAC, checking the ages of the roof or the estimated age of the roof, checking for any leaks, things like that. You also can get specialized inspections, like if your home is on septic, then you might want to get a septic inspection. If the house that you're purchasing is, let me think of another inspection. If there's a pool, you may want to get a pool inspection because these are things that are outside the realm of a normal home inspection. And then one other thing that you're going to want to get, and this is the only thing that will be required that the seller will treat if it comes back, and that's a termite inspection. So if you get a termite inspection and live termites are found, it is not negotiable. The seller must treat for those termites. Everything else that is found within your inspection is negotiable. So in your inspection, it might say HVAC needs to be serviced and there's a leak in the sink. We can ask for both things. And then the seller may come back and say, I'm not going to service the HVAC. I will fix the leak in the sink. And then we create a document that is legally binding in a court of law that will hold the seller to those repairs. So that's what an inspection contingency is. It's typically more than a couple of repairs, and we'll go back and check them prior to closing. An appraisal contingency. This is super important unless you have a ton of money down. All homes will need an appraisal. An appraisal is an opinion of value by someone who holds a degree in real estate. And what they do is they take comparable properties from within a certain range. Typically, they like to stay under a mile, but if you're in a more rural area, they may go further out, and put them into a report to show the bank that the home you're purchasing is worth at least this much. If the appraisal comes back lower, then it's a renegotiation at that time. The bank will not lend for anything over the appraised amount. So if you're doing a 100% loan with no down payment, the bank will not lend past whatever the appraised amount is. There is a process where we can appeal the appraisal if for some reason we think that the appraisal was rushed or was wrong, but that's a bridge that you only cross if you have to. Typically, the appraisals come back at or above contract price. If they come back above, that's excellent. That means as soon as you close, you have instant equity. If they come back at, that's also excellent. That means you're not spending more than what the home is worth. Again, if they come, yep.
So when you say you have instant equity, are you saying like you can take that money and put it back into the house and like fix up things? And what does that mean?
No, so it will mean that your home is worth more than what you purchased it for. So if you would have to close first and pay a couple of payments, but you could do something like take out a home equity line of credit to fix up things against that equity. So it doesn't affect your loan at all, and it doesn't put cash in your pocket at all. It just, the way I kind of explain home ownership is it's like a forced savings account. So it's just like there's more money in your savings account from the beginning. It's like a bonus. Then, okay, I got off track for a second. Hang on one second. So the appraisal, if it comes back lower, it at that point is a renegotiation. So if the seller will not reduce and you don't want to come up, you can walk from the contract without any legal ramifications and get your earnest money back. However, you will not be able to recoup your appraisal fee or your inspection fee. So those two things will be an investment in that home, whether you back out or not. Now, typically we are able to renegotiate and the seller will come down, or we can meet them halfway, something like that. In the situation, which this is kind of rare, but in the situation where it comes back like $25,000 low, well, the seller's probably not going to reduce that much. So we would have to appeal the appraisal at that point. And if we couldn't get it back up, then we may have to walk away. But it is a contingency where you can walk away without the seller suing you. So that's good. There are some additional contingencies that you can write in. So one that's very common is sell a home contingency. And so what that is just saying is like, I have this home to sell and this home has to sell in order for me to finance this home. So if this contract falls through, you can't sue me on the purchase of this home. Winnie, what are some other contingencies?
We have done offers where it's contingent upon viewing. If it's a multiple offer situation, or it's one that you really, really like and you really, really want it, but let's say you can't get in there until the next day, but you want to go ahead and put an offer in.
Yeah. Or you're out of town, like Robertson, Texas. We could do it contingent on viewing, and then the seller may or may not accept that. Everything is negotiable except for a couple of contingencies. So let me think of some other contingencies. There have been like contingent on seller replacing the upstairs carpet in the bonus room because there's stains on it. So essentially you can make anything a contingency. It's more about how strong your offer is when you're writing it, particular to that specific property. Does that make sense to everybody? Oh, we had
basically, if you want to write in contingencies, bring the money.
Yeah. Yep. Contingencies do protect you, but you have to be cautious, especially in like multiple offer situations. The more contingencies you write in, the worse your offer is. So we're going to move into buyer's perspective versus seller's perspective. And I think this is really important to understand because, especially as first-time home buyers, people see the offer price. Like, let's say the home is $300,000 and you offer $300,000 as the seller net, but that's not the case. Let's take, for example, that $300,000. You are financing $300,000, but you're asking for $5,000 in closing costs to be paid on behalf of you. Well, the seller then, assuming they don't owe any mortgage, would have a net of $295,000 before they pay agent commissions, because sellers always pay the agent commissions. So the purchase price and the seller net are not the same thing. And that's something that you have to consider, especially in our market, just because you need to know what your offer looks like to them. Because we only get a lot of times one shot, and what it looks like to us and what it looks like to them on paper are two different things. One of the questions that we get a lot is, how come this house, they bought it in 2018 for $300,000 and now they want $400,000? They're going to make $100,000 in 4 years. And the reality is if you want to sell a home in the future, you shouldn't lose money on real estate. Real estate is an investment that leads to an income, right? So it's an investment and you can make money off of it. Whether you've owned it for a year or 4 years, the comps and the appraisal prices set the market. So it does not matter what they're asking, what matters, or how much they're going to make. What matters is, does your offer suffice in order to get them enough so that they'll sell the home? And, you know, I get it. Like, I get where you can go look it up and see that it just sold for $100,000 less. But if you put yourself into their shoes and you think, okay, they made $100,000 in 5 years. Where will I be in 5 years if I own this home? So try to put yourself in the seller's shoes in that specific situation. Everybody wants a good deal when they're buying real estate. I get it. It's not a buyer's market right now. It's a seller's market right now. But interest rates are so low right now that you can afford more home than you could a year ago. So even though the prices are higher, you can afford more as far as the purchase price. So that's appreciation. That's building equity. That's what happens when you purchase a house. You build equity, the property appreciates, and then you sell it for a profit. And then included items from a seller's perspective versus a buyer's perspective. A buyer's perspective may ask for a washer and dryer and a fridge because they are first-time home buyers and they do not have these appliances. A seller may have been planning on taking their washer and dryer and their fridge because it's not included in their next home. So everything has a dollar amount to both parties. So you have to recognize that. If you ask for a washer and dryer in your offer, even though we haven't specified a dollar amount, they are seeing a dollar amount in their final net. So just keep that in mind when you're making offers. Things that are included in a home are built-in appliances. So your range, oven range, stovetop range, a microwave that's built in, a dishwasher that's built in, and fridges do not usually remain. However, I have never had a fridge kill the deal. I did have someone one time take the fridge and then they had to buy another fridge, and there was a little bit of fight because the fridge that they took was supposed to be included, and it was like one of those really nice Samsung ones, and they replaced it with like a crap Craigslist one. We worked through that. We were able to get a credit back, but I've never had a fridge kill the deal. Washer and dryer is like the biggest thing where the sellers are usually like, no thanks. I'm not going to do that. So, quite frankly, like I don't want to use washer and dryer anyways. It's just me, but, but that's that. Some other things that you may ask for in the offer or may be included in the listing are things like trampolines, playground equipment, irrigation.
Sheds in the back.
Say that again.
Sheds in the backyard.
Sheds in the backyard.
Living room
Irrigation
furniture.
systems. Huh?
Living room furniture.
Only if you're you.
Hey, ask Whitney. I did it.
He did. He said, I want this, 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 and this.
Yeah, you have to ask for it. But if you're in a multiple offer situation, we got to pay attention to what your offer really means. So some of the biggest things that I see are alarm systems. They tend to, especially the ones with videos, they tend to be a source of contention between parties right now, because like the buyer will see it and want it, and the seller will be like, well, it doesn't stay. And then it's a back and forth because those things can be really expensive. So also, if you have like an alarm system that is like by ADT, if you were to take over their equipment, you also have to take over their contract. So these things may or may not remain, but keep that in mind when you are asking for other things in the home. Let's see, how to make your offer stronger in a multiple offer situation. Removing contingencies. So we talked about what contingencies are, and now we're going to talk about how you can get rid of them. So inspection contingencies, for example, you could, though I don't suggest it ever, waive an inspection. But I do have a lot of buyers that are like, I'm super handy. This house was built in 2019. There's probably nothing wrong with it. Just waive it and make our offer stronger. So you could do that. You could partially waive your appraisal contingency by saying, if this home doesn't appraise, I will give the seller $1,000 cash over the appraised amount, because we know that the bank will not finance over the appraised amount. But if you have a little extra cash, that'll guarantee that the seller is getting at least $1,000 over the appraised amount if it doesn't appraise at the price you offered. Does that make sense? Okay. Paying, you cannot remove your financing contingency ever unless you have cash. You just can't. Removing those extra contingencies that we talked about, those would be a good idea, like viewing contingencies, for example. If there's multiple offers and you're in Texas, maybe just don't even do a viewing contingency. Maybe at that time use your inspection contingency to view the house. And then if you don't like it, then we'll find something. Paying title costs, closing costs, and prepaids. So this is kind of extensive. So I'm going to go over it just a little bit. You'll get more information from lenders when we bring lenders in to speak to you. Title insurance. Title insurance ensures that the property that you are purchasing won't have any leftover liens from a former owner. And if there are leftover liens, let's say, for example, the former owner I had this happen one time actually. They had a water softener get installed and they never paid that water softener. And then the company that installed the water softener put a lien on the property after the property was already sold. Well, that's why you have title insurance, to take care of those liens in the event that something like that happens. Title insurance on finance properties are required. So they range depending on what county you're in Tennessee. They vary, like way out in Murray County, they're super cheap, like $800. In Davidson County, they're like $1,800. So there's a range. That's title insurance. You can pay your own title insurance, again, going back to the range, in order to make your offer stronger. We can check how much title insurance will cost so that you can decide if you want to remove that. Paying your own closing costs and prepaids. Closing costs and prepaids, I kind of put those together into one explanation. But essentially what that is setting up of your escrow accounts, which includes your monthly homeowner's insurance and your monthly taxes, any lender fees that you may have, and they all have fees, prorated taxes from the date that you close to the end of the year, depending on if they've already been paid or not. So you may have to pay that back to the seller, or you may get in, like, because they become due in October, you may get in later in the year, and then they'll owe you a credit. And then other closing costs are like deed transfer fees, HOA transfer fees. So if you purchase a home that's in an HOA, they may require, it's usually like $350, a transfer fee to transfer the HOA property into your name. And if you ever do live in an HOA, pay your dues, because they can place a lien on your property and it makes it harder to sell, and or they can take ownership if it goes on for so long. Most HOAs with homes are relatively inexpensive, so there wouldn't be any reason why you should get that behind. But we did recently run into a condo that had $130,000 of HOA fees that had to be paid by the buyer. So we'll keep that in mind, obviously, but it doesn't happen much. They're usually relatively low. So paying these things, or offering to pay these things yourself, as opposed to asking the sellers to pay them, will make your offer stronger, especially in a multiple offer situation, which if you do buy a home in the next 12 months, you may potentially be in a multiple offer situation. There's no sugarcoating it. I want you to own at the low rates, because we've never in the history of mortgages at all seen rates this low. And you can afford more with a rate this low. But the reality is each property has like 10 offers on it. So it's if you're going to get a cheaper property, there will likely be higher rates. And if you're planning on waiting for a buyer's market, you could be waiting, according to our economists, for quite some time in our area. Does that mean that's going to happen everywhere? No, Nashville is just booming, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
Everybody wants to live here.
Huh?
Everybody wants to live here.
Mm-hmm. And all the businesses want to come here. So I kind of did a twofer, like I said, on the appraisal or the closing costs and prepaids, on how to make your offer stronger and understanding what the costs are. So the closing costs, you can calculate them at between 3 and 4% of the purchase price. Those are estimates because we really cannot get an accurate cost until you have your homeowner's insurance set up on your new property. And you cannot do that until you're in contract. Also, costs will vary from lender to lender and title company to title company. So it's really super important to do an estimate and then be prepared to pay higher, but be delighted when it comes in lower. And next, we're going to talk about new construction. So most of our inventory is in new construction. And the problem with that is that taxes have not been assessed and will not be assessed until after you close on your property, or at the very, very end, right before you close on your property, which means you will not know how much your yearly tax bill will be. So the lender is going to require a higher amount of closing costs in order to cushion your escrow account to make sure you can cover those taxes. Now you can calculate tax rates if you want to. However, just because you are purchasing a home at this price does not mean that the tax assessor will do a tax appraisal at that price. Could be higher, it could be lower. Typically in these new constructions, they'll just come and do them all at once. Like, here's what this floor plan will get, here's what this floor plan will get, here's what this floor plan will get. These things will be reassessed every 4 or 5 years, depending on what county you're in. So if you lock in a rate, for example, like you have a 3% rate on a $300,000 home, your tax bill can go up. Your mortgage won't go up, but because you pay your mortgage and your escrow together in one payment, if your tax bill goes up, it will seem like your payment is going up. Does that make sense? Okay. And then some other fees that you may incur are appraisal fees. They range anywhere from 400-ish to I've seen up to 1,000, depending on how far the appraiser has to go out. Typically, if it's like within an hour of Nashville, then 400 to 650 is a good range. And inspection fees. You do not pay any fees to your realtor up front, but you will need your appraisal fees, your inspection fees, and your earnest money. Your inspection fee is probably going to be between $300 and $400 for an inspection. It does vary per square foot for most inspectors. And then anything you add on will be additional. So if you added on a septic inspection, that'll be an additional fee, and the fee will range depending on who you get out to do the septic. Same with the pools or radon or whatever. Termite inspections are under 50 bucks. So typically what we do if our buyers want to write an offer and remove the inspection contingency to make their offer stronger, we write in that they retain the right to have a termite inspection. So that way, if it comes back with termites, at least they will treat that per the contract. Because if you remove every inspection, then they do not have to treat it like we talked about earlier. So appraisal, inspections, and then your earnest money. I've done deals with 0 earnest money. I've done deals with $25,000 earnest money. It really is property specific, and it really does depend on how many other offers. I would suggest to have at least $500. That is the money that I talked about you getting back if you walk away from one of your contingencies. Okay, you got anything to add, Whitney?
No, I think you covered it all.
All right. So we're going to go into applying with lenders. It is, from my experience, applying with a lender way in advance is your best option. And that's because lenders have something called forecasting that they can do, which essentially will take your credit score and they can remove items, move items, pay down credit cards, delete items, things like that, to see how far up your credit score can move if you do these things. And then they can give you a detailed plan of what you need to do in order to hit your target credit score to get into the program that you want. So for example, FHA is like usually a 620. THDA, which is a Tennessee statewide program that gives you $7,500, that's a 640 minimum. And then conventional loans, that they'll go up to 800. You know, the higher the better. So if you're using like THDA or FHA, those rates are generally pretty close to one of THDA is locked in. FHA rates don't change that much, depending on your credit score, but conventional loans or any zero down in-house products the rates will change depending on your credit score. So the higher your credit score, the better if you're going to use one of those. And then the other thing is they'll give you a price range based on your current income and any debts that you have. So when you go to apply for a mortgage, they're going to take an accounting of your debts so that they can create a DTI, which is your debt to income ratio. The lower your DTI, the better it looks for a home purchase, according to the government and the lender. So let's say you have student loans that are $1,000 a month, then that could very well kick you out of a bunch of homes. Let's say you have no debt. Let's say you only have, $100 of debt a month. You can definitely afford far more. So getting that accurate to the lender is imperative in order to find out what you can afford. And again, like I said earlier, the interest rates will also tell you what you can afford and what you can't afford. A 3% interest rate is a lot different than a 4.5% interest rate. Your affordability at a 3% interest rate will be much higher than at a 4.5% interest rate. And then determining what type of loan will get you into your home quickest. So you can do all the research in the world. You will never, ever find all the loan products that are offered in your area. There are just so many. Every lender has in-house products, conventional products, national products, state-specific products. When I say products, I mean the loan. That's what they call them. So it's important to speak to lenders in order to figure out which loan product best fits your specific situation. And we'll help you with that. If you have questions, just let us know. And you may have a specific situation that we haven't worked with before, and we'll find you a professional that can work with that. So like I said, you can Google all you want. You're never going to find all the loan products. There's so many out there. Yes, Robert.
Just saying good night. I got to run to my next call.
Bye.
Good night, ladies.
Good night.
Let's see. What else we got, Whit? That's the end of our outline.
Yeah.
Oh, once you do apply for a loan, you have 14 days to shop lenders, okay? When you apply for a loan, it is called a hard credit pull. So it may lower your credit score a couple of points, which is why the federal government instituted a rule that says creditors are not allowed to dock you for shopping lenders. And the reason you shop lenders, because there may be different loan products with different, qualifications. So once you have your initial credit run, you get 14 days. 14 days So just be prepared to like take off work one day and just fill out all the applications because you got to get them all in. So that's another tip, because while we love our lenders and we have lenders that you'll meet soon that we think are highly qualified to help with first-time home buyers and have lots of products that will assist in down payment and stuff like that. Your cousin may be a loan officer, you know, your dad, you may know somebody else. So it's important to know that 14-day rule, because I think that a lot of home buyers, especially first-time home buyers, miss that. And what happens is they end up in a product or with a rate that they learn later could have been beaten.
Right.
So 14 days, that's what you got. And really, I say keep it at 13 days just so we can make sure you don't get docked any more points. Because if you're, you know, already on the line, then that few points can hurt you. But again, going back to, that's why it's important to apply early, because the lender can specifically tell you, well, if you do this, this, and this, then your credit score will come up 80 points. So for example, like I'm purchasing a house right now. I applied with my lender, and my credit score, because one of my credit cards was maxed out because of where I got in a wreck and I had to have a rental car, had dropped several points because they don't like to see maxed out credit cards. But if I paid it off, it was going to bring it up 76 points. So I paid it off, right? I didn't close it. I did what you said, and I paid it off. And then within 30 days, my credit score jumped 76 points, which is crazy to think that that's small of an impact, because it was like $1,200, guys. It wasn't a huge balance, right? But it's crazy to think it has that much impact, but it does. And that's what that's what lenders do. They tell you what impact your credit has and what impact your credit can have if you do X, Y, and Z. There are credit repair agencies out there that'll be like, pay us, you know, $100 a month and we'll help you. And a lender will do that for free. A lender will do that for free. And if they ask you to send in a letter, you can literally just Google credit letter for Experian and just fill it out with your pertinent information. So do not spend money on credit repair agencies. I know a lot of people sell credit repair and things like that. Don't get duped into that because it's just not necessary. And then I think that's it. Like, I think we're about 15 minutes early. So what questions have you got? I can't believe 3 people dropped off.
Yeah, I wanted to stick around because it's very informational. I think like that's what me and my wife, we went through, like everything you just said not to do, we did, like the program. Pay what? Between both of us, almost $1,500 to them. Like, and we didn't see like a huge increase. And then I spoke
you did see some.
I did see some.
Yeah.
But I spoke with the lender, and like they were telling me it was a big process, and I think it was draining. So like to hear, you know, that the process and what you should do, I guess is helpful, because I think 2019, 2018, it was like we just walked away because it was so draining.
Yeah. And it is overwhelming. And I know that like when we are having these informational sessions, like people are gonna drop off because it's not fun stuff. You know, it's boring.
It's just so much, but that's why we try to break it down.
Yeah. But that's exactly why we tried to break it into 12 months worth of content, because imagine if I gave you everything that we talked about tonight, plus everything that we talked about last time, plus a lender
comes, plus the appraiser, plus
in 1 hour. It would, you know, and I wanted this to be informational because I want you to see us as a resource, to use us, to, you know, tell your people like, hey, they really care about, we really do care about making homeowners. And I think that's what sets us apart from so many agents. We're not in it for the money, and we'll do what it takes, because we want to see people build generational wealth. Like, we know the value of it. We're homeowners ourselves. We know how investment properties work. And there is just so much. There are so many people that are not homeowners in the United States, despite it being one of the easier programs to do. That it just blows my mind. Like, buying a home is easier than buying a car sometimes. You got to wait longer, but it's just easier at sometimes. It's way easier than applying for any kind of TennCare or any kind of Medicaid or Medicare, any kind of health care, anything. It's 100 times easier than that. It's just a matter of people get overwhelmed because they don't know. And then people won't tell them. And then they also get sticker shock a lot. But the way I look at it is, don't look at the purchase price, look at the monthly price. Because if you're paying $1,900 a month in rent and you're going to spend $1,750 for a mortgage, well, even if your taxes go up, you're still under what your rent payment is going. And you're building equity, and your rent's not going to go up 10% every month.
They're not going to increase your rent when that time comes.
Yeah. And there are ways around, like, if you're a homeowner, you know, I know a lot of people are like, well, I have to worry about repairs and things like that. But there are so many options that homeowners have to get those repairs taken care of, like purchasing a home warranty every year. You can purchase a home warranty every year for under $500. And if your HVAC goes out, they're going to send someone out to repair it. And if they can't repair it, then they're going to cut you a check, probably not for the whole amount, but at least enough to help the drainage, you know? So there's just so much benefit to it that it's just it's good.
And the home warranty is something that a lot of times we can write into the contract.
It is something that we can write into the contract.
You know, that the seller will, the seller's going to provide a year of home warranty.
But I've got clients who have, like, for 10 years, 12 years. My aunt has had a home warranty for 25 years. Like, she just buys a new one every year. Because if her toilet stops working, or if her water heater goes out, then it's cheaper on her to have them come out, and if they can't fix it, to spend to give them a check in order to replace it. So, and I have had whole HVAC units get replaced by home warranties. And that's really that's probably the most expensive of owning a home. Everybody thinks it's the roof. It ain't the roof. It's the HVAC systems.
Yeah. Or a water heater that.
Yeah.
I had a water heater one time that went over out of my attic and down all my walls, and 2 stories. By the time they could get, it was like one of those weird things where the snow was on the ground, and by the time they could get to my house, it had done so much damage, and they covered all of it.
Yeah.
The paint, the drywall, the ceilings,
Yeah. So there are ways to absorb those maintenance costs. I think that's one of the biggest scares for first-time home buyers is, well, what if my HVAC goes out? Can I even afford it? And quite frankly, 1, that's why you have an inspection. And 2, that's why home warranties exist. Yeah. You know, it's like an insurance.
For me and my wife, the biggest topic was price. You know, my wife was like wanting to stay at this price, and I was willing to go to a certain price, but like with you all telling us, like, it's about what you get approved for, as well as like interest rate. So all the things that goes into it, we just thought it was like one and done. Like you can pay this, and that's what it is. So that, and then also, like, again, the different lenders. So my question is, when applying in that 13-day window, like, how do you choose which lender you're going to take advice from and like go about the steps of getting your credit there?
So for you on the home buyer side, you're going to they call it shopping lenders.
Mhm.
Essentially what you're doing is you're calling these lenders and you're saying, I am a big fan of using local lenders because I have someone to hold accountable. Whereas if you use something like Bank of America, I can't go to Chicago and walk into their corporate offices and yell at someone because they messed up. But what you'll do is you'll call these lenders and be like, hey, here's my situation. Let's say I have $5,000 down. Hey, I have $5,000 down. I got quoted this rate. I just wanted to see if you had any programs that could help us, maybe bring less money down or get a lower rate. And, you know, and these lenders might tell you, I can't beat that rate, and that's fine. Move on to the next. And some lenders might tell you, oh my gosh, we have a conventional loan program that's going to save you money because it's 0 down and you don't have PMI, which PMI is private mortgage insurance, which is something that you pay to the bank so that the federal government will buy your house back if you ever don't pay your payments. So that the bank
barely touched on that the last meeting.
Yeah. So it's all built in so that banks can't fail, which I'm not even going to get into my thoughts on that. But so, you know, a lender might come back and say, hey, my rate is a little bit higher, but I have this program and you'll save $150 a month because it won't have PMI. So that's what you're shopping. You're shopping the interest rates and the programs. Yeah.
That's good to know. Interest rating programs.
Yeah.
And they're all different. So,
and there are so many, I mean, thousands, because you have your FHA, for example. It's a national program, right? So all across the United States, I know that someone can get an FHA mortgage down to a 580 credit score with 3.5% down, so long as their DTI is under 50%. But in-house programs are specific to those lenders. So that means they offer it and nobody else does. We see a lot of lenders that offer teacher programs or nurse programs or first-time homebuyer programs, 0 down conventional programs with no PMI. So it's just a matter of finding lenders that can beat the other rate. And we'll work with any lender. We don't care what lender you use. I mean, we love our lenders, don't get me wrong. And we chose the lenders that we work with in this group specifically because they have great credit repair programs. But I don't care which lender you use. All I need to know is what kind of loan you're getting and some minor specifics of it so that I can best negotiate for you on your behalf. And then your pre-approval price.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
On the road.
A lot of people get sticker shock. So I get it. But it's about your monthly mortgage payment. It's not about how much the house costs. Because the house is going to go up in value in our market, in our area. Like our economists say, like, we're good. We're not going to experience any kind of bubble bursting. That's not to say that other states won't, but right now, because we are the most popular state to move to, and we have no state income tax and very, very low corporation taxes, that we're just getting an influx and people are just flocking here. So next 5 to 10 years is just going to get even crazier. But the good news is, if your home is worth $300,000 today and you buy it for $300,000, in 5 years, it's probably going to be worth $400,000. My home I have almost $200,000 in equity, and I just bought it 6 years ago. And you can guarantee that somebody, when they go to buy my house this summer, is going to say,
she's making so much money.
She's making so much money. But the reality is, I am moving into a higher priced property. So in order to keep my budget where I want it to be, I've got to put all that money back into another house. And that's why I bought the house in the first place. Because I want to make all that money, right? Like, that's my goal, is to make all that money. So yeah.
I think we ran numbers a couple weeks ago, and I think like in that one neighborhood we were talking about, in 3 months, home value's gone up 16%.
Mm-hmm.
in 3 months.
So if you had a $300,000 house, or if you had a $100,000 house and it went up 16%, it would be worth $116,000 in 3 months. It's crazy numbers. Yeah. So, I mean, really getting in before it explodes is an excellent idea, especially with these interest rates. These interest rates are so low, you're not ever going to have to refinance. They won't ever be this low again. I've never seen them this low. My parents, when they bought their first house, they paid like 12% interest.
Yeah, like 10, 12.
And it's like 2.5 to 3 now, which is crazy. It's literally the lowest it's ever been in the history of mortgages in our country.
Yeah.
So,
which is why we want people, you know, because I think the whole shopping for a lender thing for a lot of people is really scary and kind of intimidating. Like, I have to share what information with this stranger, and you know, and there's that fear of, oh, well, they're just going to tell me no. Well, they're not going to tell you no. They might tell you not yet, but in the process of being told not yet, you're also being told how to get to yes, as opposed to you guessing how to get to yes.
Yeah.
You've got the professional there telling you how to get to a yes. And if it's going to take a few months, wouldn't you rather know now than 6 months from now?
Right.
Where you have to sign a whole nother lease?
Yeah. Right. So, which is another reason we're kind of doing this the way that we are, so that, you know, as you go through that process, we're still explaining things to you so that by the time you get that process done and you're ready, you're really, really ready.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, including me and my wife, we were scared because it was, well, in 6 months, it was like 6 months. Well, not scared, impatient. Yeah. It was like 6 months, you know, I want it now. And it's like, you really have to practice that patience and really do what they tell you to do. Because when they told me 6 more months, I mean, at that point I was like, I'm tapped out. I have nothing else to give. So I really gave up. So, you know, practicing patience, I'm taking it all in.
That's our societal norm, right? Like, we want instant gratification. And I'll tell you, it's gonna test your patience when you're searching for a house and a buyer. You know, I've written as many as 12 contracts before we've gotten one accepted. So literally at the beginning of searching, we're just going to be like, don't fall in love until your offer is accepted. Fall in like, fall in lust, don't fall in love, because we don't want to see you crushed, because when you hurt, we hurt. Like,
yeah,
you know, so
that's the worst call to make, I feel like.
It is. It's awful. Like, I hate, but I love making the, oh my gosh, you got the house phone call. Yeah. Because it really will test your patience. And just know, like, it tests our patience too.
Yeah.
Like, we want you to win, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of people out there looking for housing in our state right now. And inventory is the lowest it's been in 20 years. A healthy market would have 90 days worth of inventory. Ours has 2 weeks. So, wow. Yeah. So it's just crazy. Yeah. Listings are down 43% from last January.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And is it like single family homes, or is it a mixture?
It's everything.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, townhomes, they may stay on the market a little bit longer. Really depends on the specifics. Not every condo development is approved for like FHA or VA. So those ones that aren't, you have to do conventional or cash, they tend to stay on the market a little bit longer. The new ones are almost all approved for those types of financing. But that is also why so many new construction homes are popping up, because there's no inventory and buyers need a place to go. And you know, when you get into a new construction home, you don't have to worry about fighting with other buyers, because you're building your home. You just pick your lot and the builder builds it. So yeah, there's new construction, and that's all that's really out there that's not being fought over. Everything else is being fought over. But that's why you have us as professionals to help negotiate on your behalf and guide you into how to make the best offer. Because I'll be honest right now, like if you came to me and you're like, I want to offer $10,000 below and I want to ask for $10,000 in closing costs and I want their washer and dryer, I'm going to be like, that's a waste of our time. Because if you love this house, you ain't getting it with that offer. So, yeah. Or if you are in lust with this house, you're not getting that offer. So
the other thing with condos and townhomes, I think that they stay on longer is because they have some of the highest HOA fees.
Yeah.
And so your lender will pre-approve you for $250. Well, that means that you really can't look at $250,000 townhomes or condos. You need to be looking in the 225 range, because then you've got the monthly HOA that has to be, and so sometimes that can get kind of confusing and frustrating too, because it's like, but that's lower than what and you've got to keep it all kind of in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think something else that shocks a lot of people, going back to sticker shock, is when a lender tells them what the monthly price will be. Mm-hmm. And then they've seen, like they've been on Zillow or Redfin or whatever, and they've seen estimated monthly mortgage and it's much lower. Yeah. And that is because the lender is wrapping in your escrow payments, which is what we just talked about, and taxes, and however much down payment. Whereas all those calculators that you see out there, those are calculated at 20% down with the lowest rate available, and it's not calculating any taxes or insurance that are included in escrow. So it might say $850, when really you're getting quoted $1,700.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, is that they're not showing you those extra fees that are required just to buy the house, because an escrow is required if you're financing it. And the reason it's required is because they want to make sure your taxes and your insurance get paid, because if they don't, if your insurance doesn't get paid, for example, and there's a fire, then they've lost the house. They can't take it from you. You've lost the house. The bank loses all the money. Mm-hmm. So that's why those things are required, so that the bank can pay them for you when they come due every year. And then the same with taxes. If you don't pay your taxes, and your bank didn't require an escrow, and then you don't pay your taxes for 3 years, then the state can put a lien on your property. And if you don't pay it, then they can sell your property at public auction. And so they'll get their tax money, but the bank won't get their money. So that's what escrows are for. Do you have any more questions for us?
No, not at the moment. I think that was one of the questions and concerns I had right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just really taking it, I guess, day by day, week by week. And just my wife, she did open up a credit card.
Awesome.
$200. She added me as the authorized user. And just like been keeping her balance low.
Yeah.
It's 500 in total. 500. And she added me as the authorized user. And, I'm not applying for any credit cards. And we're just going to move with that, like the authorized user, her, keep her balance low. And yeah.
Yeah. And so the kind of the limit, what's going to bring your credit up the most is if you keep it below 30%. Mm-hmm. But it's also important to have a revolving balance, because they give you more credit score if you pay interest. So if you go spend gas and then you pay it right away, you don't pay any interest, because the interest doesn't come due until the next month. So like what I'll do to avoid interest is I'll pay it down to $5, and I'll let that $5 roll over and just pay interest on that $5. Mm-hmm. So make sure you aren't spending more than 30% of the balance, and you're letting some of the balance roll over so they can get your interest, because that's how that's just how credit scores work, which I don't know. I don't even know how America got credit scores. Like one day somebody was just like, oh, let's just rate everybody.
Let's complicate things.
Like, y'all know other countries don't have credit scores like we do, right? Yeah. So bizarre, but yeah, but we're always here if you need us. And
post in the group if you come up with a question. Chances are that somebody else has the question and they're scared to ask it.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's hard to not be disappointed because I expected more people to be here. But at the same time, like, I know this is boring. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to post it in the group, the recording. Are you cool with that? Okay. Because I know that they're just going to watch it later or watch it at their leisure, but this one was really informative.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like.
Yeah. Thanks for asking those questions. Cause that was good.
Yeah. And hearing that, you know, that's what your wife was like, well, I don't want to pay this much for a house. And kind of reaffirming, like, it's not about that, reaffirms that we're actually doing our job.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, y'all go spend time with the fam or whatever.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye.